All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive with us. You know we love to take these deep dives. And today we're going to be tackling something I think a lot of us think about. What actually goes into making a sprint, a successful sprint.
Yeah.
Especially, when we're thinking about the world of agile development.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be looking at a blog post by Frank O'Neill, and he's a product manager. So he kind of lays down the theory here. But what I think is so cool about this particular post is that he's actually using a real project that he worked on to illustrate his points.
Love that. I mean, that's how we learn best, right?
Yeah.
Seeing how it actually plays out.
Absolutely. So he breaks down successful sprints into five kind of key factors, and those are clear goals, effective planning, engagement, adaptability, and delivering quality.
Makes sense.
And I think, right off the bat, he says, this isn't just, a checklist that you can go down.
It's more than that. It's really how all of these pieces work together. You can have all the ingredients, but if you don't know how to cook them right, you're not going to get, that Michelin star meal.
You're not going to get that tasty dish. I'm already liking this metaphor. So let's actually jump into his real world example. Okay. So he was working on this SaaS platform, and the goal was to improve their user onboarding experience.
Onboarding, yeah.
How do we get users up and running using our product as quickly and as smoothly as possible?
Right. Got to get that right. And it sounds like he was pretty specific about it, too. They wanted to reduce the actual onboarding time, and they wanted to increase those activation rates by 20%.
Yeah. It's a pretty ambitious goal, right? So how do they even begin to kind of tackle this?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, that goal is a perfect example of what we call a SMART goal, right? Yeah. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Oh, I see.
I mean, he's hitting one of his own success factors right out of the gate.
So they have the what, but now we got to get to that how.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the planning part is so key, right?
Yeah.
But this wasn't just like a simple to-do list. They broke the goal down into smaller pieces, those user stories. Like, what does the user actually want to do, and how do we make that happen?
Yeah.
And then from there, they assigned the tasks. They figured out, how long each one was going to take, and then prioritized. They had to be ruthless, because you can't do everything at once.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it's interesting, too, because the teams weren't siloed, right? You had developers working with the designers, with the marketing folks, even with customer support, getting those real-world insights.
That's so important, that engagement, right?
Absolutely.
So Frank talks about daily stand-ups, and some people might, groan about those, but he made it sound like, these were actually productive mini problem-solving sessions.
Yeah, not just like a boring status update, but really a chance for the team to connect, figure out what roadblocks they were facing, and brainstorm solutions together.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what Agile is all about.
And speaking of Agile, in any project, things change, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So his team, they hit this bottleneck mid-sprint, right?
Oh, no.
But they didn't panic. They used those daily check-ins to kind of reprioritize their tasks and tackle the issue head on.
That's the beauty of Agile, right? Yeah. It's all about adapting and being flexible. Yeah. You have to be able to roll with the punches.
So they're adaptable, they're engaged, but did they actually deliver?
They did. And not just deliver, they actually exceeded that activation goal. They hit a 25% increase.
Woo!
And it wasn't just, they said it worked. They actually backed it up with user testing and analytics.
Oh, nice.
Real data to show that all this effort actually made a difference.
So they knocked it out of the park. But for those of us listening who maybe aren't, living and breathing Agile every day, what's the takeaway?
Well, I think the big thing is that these 5 factors, they are just, buzzwords.
Yeah.
They're a real framework for achieving goals, for getting stuff done.
Absolutely.
And it's not just for tech companies. It's a way for any team to work better together, be more adaptable, and get things done.
So true. Now, I want to go back to something you said about how these factors actually kind of need to work together.
Yeah.
Can we break that down a bit more? What happens if you, nail one of these factors but totally drop the ball on another?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think that's where a lot of teams, they struggle. Yeah. They get so caught up in the mechanics of it all, the sprints, the stand-ups, the tools, and they lose sight of what really matters.
Right.
the principles.
Like take, for example, clear goals, right?
Yeah.
It seems so obvious, but you would be surprised how many teams just dive right into a sprint and they don't even really have a shared understanding of what they're actually trying to do.
It's like setting off on a road trip without deciding where you're going.
Yeah.
You might enjoy the ride for a little bit,
Yeah.
but eventually you're going to be lost and frustrated.
Oh, absolutely.
And nobody wants that.
Okay, so you got to have that clear destination, but then the journey itself, right?
Yeah.
That's where effective planning comes in.
Absolutely. And that's where it gets really interesting because planning in Agile isn't about, creating this rigid project plan. Mm-hmm. It's about being flexible, constantly evaluating, and adjusting based on what you learn along the way.
So it's not a static document. It's a living, breathing roadmap that kind of evolves along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, that engagement is so crucial. You need everybody on the team involved, sharing their thoughts, their ideas, and flagging any potential problems early on.
Yeah.
Before they become big problems.
Yeah. So we've got these clear goals. We've got this plan that we're all bought into. But, what about when things go wrong? And they inevitably do. That's where adaptability comes in, right?
Absolutely.
That's that agile mindset in action.
Yeah.
It's not about sticking to the plan no matter what.
Right.
It's about being able to roll with the punches.
Yeah, Frank's team, they hit that bottleneck, right? But they were able to adjust because they had that flexibility built in from the beginning.
It's like having that kind of safety net, but a safety net.
Yeah.
That's also helping you kind of
propelling you forward.
Propel yourself forward.
Yeah. And adaptability isn't just about reacting to those problems. It's about being open to new opportunities that come up.
So like if mid-sprint you realize there's actually a better way to do something, don't be afraid to kind of
pivot. Exactly.
Okay.
Because Agile is all about continuous improvement, always looking for those better ways to do things.
Okay. So we've got effective planning, communication's going great. We're flexible. What's that last piece of the puzzle here?
Well, you got to deliver. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And deliver those high-quality results. I mean, it's not just about checking things off a list.
Right.
It's about actually creating something that works, that's valuable.
Right. And Frank's team, they didn't just meet their goal. They actually exceeded it.
They did.
And in a measurable way, right? Like you could actually see the impact.
Absolutely. And that's where that focus on quality comes in.
Yeah.
At every single step of the sprint, having those clear acceptance criteria, really testing things out and getting that feedback along the way.
So it's not just about finishing. It's about
delivering something you're actually proud of.
Yeah, delivering something that you're proud of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what makes it truly satisfying.
Okay, welcome back to our deep dive into what makes those successful sprints tick. So right before the break, we were starting to get into that first ingredient in the recipe, those clear goals.
And, this is where things can kind of go sideways even when everyone's trying their best. Mm-hmm. You just can't toss out some vague goal like, let's improve the user experience and expect everybody to be, certainly on the same page.
It's like saying, let's make a delicious dinner. Okay, great. Yeah. But without more detail, you're going to end up with some very different meals depending on, who's doing the cooking.
Exactly. So we got to get specific, right?
Yeah.
Like in Frank's example, their goal wasn't just, to improve onboarding. It was to reduce that time and increase those activation rates by, a very specific percentage. That's the level of detail we're talking about.
So it's those SMART goals again.
Yeah.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But even with a SMART goal, like how do you actually break it down into those actionable steps?
Well, that's where those user stories come in. And a user story, it's not, some technical document. It's a simple statement from the perspective of, the person using the product. Like, what do they want to be able to do and why?
Okay, so can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say we're working on like a mobile banking app.
Okay.
A user story might be something like, as a customer, I want to be able to deposit a check using my phone's camera so I don't have to actually, go to the bank.
Oh, okay.
Simple, straightforward.
Yeah, so that's nice and specific, but how do you go from that user story to an actual list of tasks that need to get done?
Right. That's where you got to bring the team together. And like we talked about before, this team, it should be folks from different departments, different areas of expertise. Yeah. And you basically just walk through each user story and figure out all those little steps, those tasks that are going to be needed to make it a reality.
So in our mobile check deposit example, you might have to think about the camera functionality, processing the image, the security protocols, like integrating with all the bank systems. It's a lot.
It's a lot more than just like building a camera button.
Right. And this is where I think things can get really kind of tricky, especially when you're trying to estimate like how much effort each of these tasks is going to take.
Because you're not just thinking about, how long does it take to write the code. You got to think about all the other complexities, the dependencies, all those things that can kind of throw you off track.
And Frank, he doesn't really go into a ton of detail about how they actually did their estimation,
right?
Which made me kind of curious. Like, how do teams actually figure that out? Are they just throwing darts at a board?
Well, there are actually a bunch of different ways to do it. Some teams use, time-based estimates, like, okay, this task is going to take 4 hours.
Okay.
Other teams use a point system where they focus more on, how complex a task is rather than the actual hours it takes.
So instead of saying, okay, this task is going to take 4 hours, you might say, okay, this task is a 3-pointer based on,
right, exactly,
technical difficulty or the risk involved.
Yep. And there are all sorts of tools and techniques for helping teams kind of figure out those estimates together. Like planning poker. That's a popular one.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, everybody submits their estimates anonymously, and then you kind of, talk it out if there are any, big differences.
That sounds fun, actually.
It can be.
Take some of the guesswork out. But even with the best estimates, like, I feel like there's always going to be those times where you just have way more work than you can realistically fit into a sprint.
And that's where, that prioritization comes in, that ruthless prioritization.
You got to make some tough choices.
You do. You got to figure out what absolutely has to get done, in this sprint versus, what can maybe wait till later.
And it's not just about what's technically possible, right? Yeah. It's about the value, like what's actually going to deliver the most value to the user.
Exactly. You got to keep those user stories in mind, the whole time. Because at the end of the day, it's all about building something that solves real problems for, real people.
So we've got our clear goals. We've broken them down into those user stories. We've estimated effort. We've prioritized what's next.
Well, now you got to make sure that everybody is on the same page and that they're excited to get to work, right? That's where that effective communication and that collaboration come in. Okay,
welcome back. We've spent a lot of time breaking down those first two pieces of the puzzle, right? Clear goals and effective planning.
Yeah.
But now we're getting to the part where things really get moving,
Yeah, this is where the human element really comes in. Because you can have, the perfect plan on paper, but if your team's not on board, if the communication's not flowing, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right. So let's talk about that engagement piece. Frank mentioned those daily stand-ups.
Yeah.
And, those can sometimes feel like a chore.
Oh, right.
But he really made it sound like they were actually, helpful and productive. So what's the secret there?
Well, you got to kind of shift the mindset, right?
Yeah.
A stand-up, it shouldn't be just a status update, everybody going around the room saying what they did yesterday, what they're going to do today. It should be more focused. Like, how are we going to remove those obstacles and keep things moving forward?
So less, here's what I did, and more, here's what I need help with.
Exactly. Yeah. Identify those roadblocks before they become, major problems. And it's a chance to celebrate those little wins along the way. Keep that momentum going. It's
like those inspirational sports movies.
Right? Oh, yeah.
The coach giving that pep talk in the locker room before the big game.
Maybe not quite that dramatic.
Okay, maybe not that dramatic, but...
Did you get the idea?
You get the idea.
It's about, bringing the team together.
Yeah. And this type of communication, it shouldn't just be happening in the stand-up, right?
No, absolutely not. Remember how, Frank talked about bringing in folks from different departments?
Right.
That cross-functional collaboration, that's essential.
Yeah.
You got to have that communication flowing between the developers, the designers, the marketing folks, customer support, everybody.
Because otherwise you end up with those silos, right?
Yeah.
And people are just kind of working in isolation and making assumptions about what everyone else is doing.
Right. And that leads to miscommunication, missed deadlines, a whole lot of frustration.
Okay, so we're communicating, we're collaborating, we're feeling good, but what about when things, inevitably change? That's where adaptability comes in, right?
Yeah, that's where that agile mindset really shines, because it's not about sticking to the plan no matter what. It's about being able to adjust when when things change.
Like Frank's team, right? They hit that bottleneck.
Yeah,
But they were able to course correct because they had that flexibility baked in.
exactly. Yeah. And adaptability, it's not just about, reacting to problems. It's also about being open to new opportunities.
So if you discover a better way to do something mid-sprint, don't be afraid to kind of switch gears.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point of Agile, right? It's all about continuous improvement.
Okay, so we've planned effectively, we're communicating, we're flexible. What's that final ingredient here?
Delivering those high quality results.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting it done, it's about getting it done well.
Right, and Frank's team, they didn't just meet their goal, they went above and beyond.
Yeah, yeah. And they did it in a way that you could measure, like you could actually see the impact.
And that's where that focus on quality throughout the whole process really makes a difference.
Absolutely, yeah. Having those clear acceptance criteria, thorough testing, gathering feedback along the way, it all adds up.
So it's not just about checking those boxes, it's about delivering something that you can be proud of.
Exactly. That's what makes a sprint not just successful, but, truly satisfying.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, right? We've unpacked those 5 key factors. We've dug into Frank's real-world example, and I think we've given folks some practical takeaways to apply to their own work.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope we've also, inspired folks to approach their next project with some fresh energy and a new perspective.
Absolutely. Remember, Agile, it's not just a methodology, it's a mindset. It's about collaboration, adaptability, and focusing on delivering real value.
And it's about, remembering that those most successful sprints, they're the ones that help us learn to grow and to create something that truly matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep sprinting towards success. I'm